It's the end of February 2025, folks, and we thought that people have kind of now have taken the opportunity after the horrendous years of the pandemic, after exposing so much detail. We thought people have finally came to terms to realize that what you're being told in the media is absolute garbage. That we've been lied to, that we need to hold people accountable for the heinous actions that they have endured during the pandemic years. Sadly, we haven't really prosecuted any of these people or hold anyone to a real account, and they're still continuing to lie to people. Even in 2025, even after everybody is now aware that the Wuhan lab leak theory, that theory has turned out to be correct. That they have done investigations. They know about Anthony Fauci. They lied about gain of function research. They lied about comorbidity. They lied about ivermectin. They lied about hydroxychloroquine. They lied to you. They silenced doctors. They fired nurses. All the actions that they've done throughout the pandemic, and people are still being lied to, and they're still eating up the propaganda, still to this day. And it's because of outlets like the CBC here that 3 months ago, this year, new evidence COVID 19 came from animals, not a Wuhan lab. Even after the CIA even came forward and had to tell the truth that we have substantial evidence that this came from a laboratory, that Anthony Fauci has compiled gain of function research to develop coronaviruses in a laboratory in Wuhan, where the laboratory is named after the virus. CBC still lying about it. Still lying about it. A team at Canada's Center for Pandemic Research say they found strong but circumstantial genetic evidence that COVID 19 jumped from animals to humans in Wuhan, China. Think of the wording they used there. Found strong but circumstantial evidence. What does that mean? Oh, we have a very strong case, but we can only say it at the right time. You know, science you can only do between 11 a.m. and noon. You can only do it at certain periods because that's circumstantial. What does that mean? Strong but circumstantial evidence that you're making up bullshit. That the lie you imposed the first time around, nobody stuck to that. Nobody thought for a second that, oh yeah, it definitely came from a bat at a wet market. That somehow that transferred to a human being. Instead of looking at the laboratory that has been developing these diseases for many years. Despite mounting evidence of an animal origin, many still believed it leaked from a Chinese virology lab. You mean like the CIA? You mean like the Chinese government that had to come forward now? You mean that after how many investigations? Yeah, people still believe in this lab leak theory. They still believe in the truth. What the hell's that about? So, National Citizens Inquiry. So, the reason I showed you that CBC article is because National Citizens Inquiry that has done a deep dive look into all the wrongdoings of COVID. They have brought in people to testify, everybody from the media, everybody from doctors, researchers. This has been a compelling argument. This has been kind of the most accountability we're getting here in Canada is the National Citizens Inquiry. And they put out this video saying that the CBC lied and knew it. That back in 2021, CBC told Canadians not to trust their fathers about the lab leak theory. That is now confirmed true. So, everybody knows that is confirmed true. But yet the CBC still wants to lie to you in 2025. Still wants to lie to you. This wasn't journalism, it was propaganda. CBC joined the Trusted News Initiative, a media conglomeration designed to filter information and silence the truth. So, a government entity aligned itself with the CBC to do fact checking. Just like how CNN had to join up with factcheck.org to filter out misinformation. If CNN and CBC were trusted news organizations, why would they need fact checkers? Why would they team up with an NGO and an organization to fact check each other and filter out information? Why would that be the case? Maybe because CBC isn't exactly telling you the truth as is. If you tell the truth, trust follows. If you don't, you need a trust initiative to cover your tracks. That's why our Canadian media system got bailed out by Justin Trudeau, because they were deteriorating, they were crumbling because of how many lies they were telling people. And the way to gain viewership and respect in the media is to give them honest facts, give them honest truths, and investigate and hold people accountable. That's why people turn to the news. But you failed those people, and that's why they come to podcasts like this. That's why they come to me. Because the CBC, CTV, Global, City News, Toronto Star, all these publications and outlets have failed the people to the point that Justin Trudeau had to buy out the media to now use as a weapon for him. Now the media does circles kissing Justin Trudeau because they bailed them out. So here's what National Citizens Inquiry discussed about CBC. Listen to this.
What the CBC did by warning Canadians not to trust their fathers about a lab leak theory was propaganda. March 4th, 2021, about a year after the emergency, the editor-in-chief of CBC News, Brodie Fenlon, wrote on his blog, a recent survey found that about half of Canadians think journalists are purposely trying to mislead them. Well, that's because we're on to you. At least half of us pay attention to our gut, and we know that you are purposely trying to mislead us. To promote trust in journalism.
So I just want to stop there just to show people this. So the CBC wrote an article, and the editor-in-chief at the CBC, Brodie Fenlon, came forward and said, recent survey found that 49% of Canadians think journalists, corporate journalists, are purposely trying to mislead. And that's almost half of the country. Almost half the country thinks that corporate journalists are purposely lying to them. And that's because we could see their obvious lies when we fact check them and show what they are not showing on regular television. And they have lied to you, not just with COVID, but they have lied to you about Ukraine. They have lied to you about Trudeau. They have lied to you about the scandals he's invoked in. They have lied to you constantly, still to this day. And that is why the corporate media system is failing in this country. Just like it's failing in the United States. How MSNBC and CNN have to lay off a bunch of their employees, and they have to turn things around. So now that, Anderson Cooper might have to do a podcast, because that's apparently how we got to reach propaganda somehow. We can't reach the 70-year-olds anymore. Now we got to propagandize through podcast. Instead of actually doing good journalism, like what Gray Zone does, or Aaron Mate, or even myself. I'm not considered a journalist. I'm just considered someone that gathers media and information and brings you details about it and has an open discussion. But sadly, because of how much the media is failing our country, I am pretty much the last resort. People like me are pretty much the last resort for journalistic ethics and bring you information. Because I'm willing to reach out and expose corrupted individuals. I'm willing to learn and expose details about COVID, about the Ukraine war. We have told you how this war initiated, how it wasn't about Russia just coming in. We have told you the whole story about it. We have told you the whole story about COVID. We exposed the liars. We exposed the criminals. We exposed people within the scandals with Justin Trudeau and the corporate capture of Canada and our parliamentary system as a whole. Things that the CBC and all these other corporate entities have never done. And it's still hilarious to me that the CBC still considers themselves a public broadcaster. Because they're far from it. They're far from it. They get corporate entities to buy up advertising to turn them from a public broadcaster into another state-affirming corporate entity that doesn't investigate. It's not a public broadcaster. It's not serving the needs of the public. It's a general run-of-the-mill state media empire that's propagandizing people.
And the CBC has joined 4 organizations. One of them is called the Trusted News Initiative, which is designed to filter news through its own trust filter system. And notice that none of these organizations have the word truth in them. If you tell the truth consistently, trust is automatic. If you don't tell the truth consistently, you have to say things like, please trust me. The Trusted News Initiative and the...
That's a great point there. And like I said earlier, you build trust when people hear from you and you tell them the truth. You build a foundation. That's how you get people to watch your show. That's how you get people when you have authentic and you actually are real and you actually look at things and you present information in a non-biased, complete, propagandized way. When you actually take the time to tell the truth to people, that's how you build a viewing audience. When you constantly lie to them, you're not building trust. But then you have to propagandize people and build these initiatives to tell you to trust me, bro, trust me. Just like when, during COVID, the top liars that were mandating and oppressing you were telling you to trust the science. You don't trust the science. You analyze the science. You build a hypothesis. You then examine the data, and then you present that argument, and then you counteract that argument with more science. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it's always worked. That's how innovation happens. But they're not doing that. So here's
CBC
more.
Announced together on the 27th, prior to the Adrian Arsenault piece, that CBC and Radio Canada are joining an industry collaboration of major media and technology organizations to rapidly identify and stop the spread of harmful coronavirus disinformation. So immediately they were in a position of pushing one side of the story. Stopping misinformation means censoring. Censorship, pure and simple.
So, just look at back here. How CBC and Radio Canada, which is the Francophone CBC, it's the French version, coordinate together with this entity, with this Trusted News Initiative, not to bring you facts, not to hold Justin Trudeau or Theresa Tam or any of these people accountable, but to filter out information to bring you more propaganda. Trusted News Initiative will alert each other to disinformation about coronavirus, expose mistruths and disinformation about the global pandemic. Are they going to expose how the 6-foot rule was unscientific? Are they going to expose the hypocrisy of masking? Are they going to expose that all these corporate news organizations that told you ivermectin is horse paste is actually a well-developed, award-winning medicine that they were using to treat not only coronaviruses but also cancer? Are they gonna highlight that? No. They're the ones that are bringing you disinformation. What this is censorship. What this is an initiative to silence out competitive voices, people that go against the grain, people that bring another perspective into this argument to stronghold the mainstream narrative. That's called manufacturing consent. They are purposely going after any sort of opposing voice that challenges the narrative, calling it disinformation, silencing you, coordinating with a trusted news initiative, not even calling it truth, just calling it trusted, to regurgitate mainstream, main state propaganda.
What the CBC did by warning.
So, but this is New York, this is from Time Magazine. So, as the CBC is still lying to you about the origins of COVID-19 after everybody is aware of this. Go and Google it right now. Every other publication has come to terms to realize that we can't lie anymore. We can't pretend that this came from a bat, it came from some sort of wet market, and we have to open the books and tell people, expose the truth. To the point that even Time Magazine says, what to know about the CIA's conclusion that COVID-19 came from a laboratory. And top virologists who create diseases through gain-of-function research already admitted to this. I've already admitted to this countless times over. So when Anthony Fauci was testified on gain-of-function research, this came from laboratory. When Jon Stewart went on to Stephen Colbert's late night show and made that comment and statement about the laboratory, the lab leak theory, Jon Stewart was right about that, and he got slammed for it. He got slammed for it by the rest of the establishment media, and that's why Jon Stewart had to go pin a medal on a Nazi, how he had to kiss around the establishment by interviewing two of the most heinous war criminals. Because they actually knew this was right, and they were trying to cover it up. Because they don't go after people for lying. They go after people for exposing the truth, especially the truth that shines a light on the corruption of these evildoers. Because what this shows, and what all the Doge records of USAID is proving, and all the records with NIH, all the records with Anthony Fauci, is that the United States, along with Canada and other countries, have coordinated in the same regards as this laboratory to create and develop viruses, to create and develop diseases. Why? That they create it, they expose it to other people, and then they could sell you the solution. That is how nefarious these people are. And it goes back to the Pfizer files that we exposed way back in this channel, how big pharmaceutical companies would go over to primarily third world nations in Africa, build up these laboratories, create these diseases, and then trick the people to cozy up to them to get the solution. In most regards, this would be illegal. But because the world truly runs on corruption and blackmail, nothing's being done about this. So, the fact that the CBC still wants to lie to you about the origin of where the virus came from in 2025, after all that has been said and done, is
What the CBC
it's
did.
remarkable. And here's Congress finally admitting that COVID-19 came from a lab in Wuhan. That was from December of last year. Because they couldn't hide any longer. People were well aware of it. People were very well aware of how the gain of function research, how Anthony Fauci, how NIH, how all these entities go into these laboratories to use and abuse people, creating these diseases as bioweapons to manipulate people, and then try to sell you the solution, which is exactly what coronavirus did. They created a problem, spread it all around the world, and then told people, hey, if you get yourself, there's the solution. And they got away with millions and billions of dollars. Bill Gates got 20-to-1 investment. And he said it was the best investment he ever made by going into the vaccine game. A guy who never finished college, a guy who never programmed a single computer, a guy who has no sort of knowledge about the environment or nature whatsoever, said the best investment he ever made was going into the vaccine game. And these are sinister, heinous people that bought out the media so that places like the CBC still continue to lie to you. And meanwhile, Theresa Tam, big pharmaceuticals, have never been held to account. We've seen bits and parts of it with Fauci. We've seen bits and parts of it with other people. They finally come to terms with it. There's still people out there that are still diluted into the propaganda, even to this day. But there still are some people that have finally turned around, have finally opened their eyes. They've finally seen the light, seen the truth, and finally came forward. But no one's been held to account. And I think they should be held to account. There should be prosecution. There should be some sort of legal obligation. How sinister, how just globalized, and how destructive this was for everybody around the world. And how it has demonized country after country. Every single person that had to deal with this. All the people that were propagandized and programmed to hate each other because they wouldn't stand 6 feet apart, because they wouldn't get themselves the because they wouldn't mask up. Instead of going after the people and investigating where this virus came from. And they're still doing gain of function research, by the way. They're still doing it. While places like the CBC still continue to propagandize. And they wonder why they're losing viewers. They wonder why they're losing respect.